Hi, my name's Brooke Haggerty, the Food Chick. Welcome to today's episode of For the Love of Food. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're not going to be cooking today. We're going to be talking, and we're going to be talking about food with my friend Carrie Hoff. Carrie is a lifelong Carroll Countyan. She is a yoga instructor and a nutrition and wellness coach. And one thing that Carrie and I have been discussing over the last few months is mindful eating. And I like to say that you coined that phrase. At least you coined it for me.
Maybe with you, but not everywhere.
Yeah, you coined it for me, and I've really sort of taken it to heart. Just recently, as a matter of fact, last night, Carrie and I hosted a wine dinner together where we brought a group of about 20 people into the restaurant, and we gave them a 4-course meal with wine, and we talked about making mindful choices when you're out at a restaurant. And I want to talk a little bit about the mindful choices at the restaurant and also just mindful choices in your daily eating habits. So, Carrie, tell me a little bit about mindful eating.
Mindful eating is just taking the time to be aware of the foods that you're eating and enjoying the foods that you eat. So we are inundated by commercials, by experts, by books, by our doctors on what to eat, what not to eat, how to eat it, why to eat it. And so food becomes a little confusing, and we make thousands of decisions every day, and I want to make food a little less confusing for people so that they can sit down, enjoy their food, and make it a social affair again.
Okay, that sounds great to me. So making it a social affair, is that including at home, when you're out in a restaurant? I mean, I know in today's world, a lot of times people are running around, so even dinner at home sometimes is just grab and go, or we're sitting there at the table and we've got our phones next to us. Talk to me about what a difference that makes with your meal.
We make, every day, we are inundated again with places to be, things to do. We have to-do lists and we have to-don't-do lists that we put in our mind. And so we schedule time for everything else, but we don't schedule time to eat. And what ends up happening is that we consume food, we don't enjoy food. When you're just consuming food, you don't pay attention to how much you're eating and when you're satisfied. So actually sitting down, and that was the beauty of last night, that was probably my favorite part, was to start to hear the chatter of laughter and the voices, and they kind of forgot about us, that we couldn't even gather their attention anymore. So dinner there were no phones at the table, and I didn't say that ahead of time, but there were no phones. Everybody talked amongst themselves. The greatest thing for me is that people sit down, they have conversation. In the world of our body and eating, it takes 20 minutes for the belly to send the signal to the brain that it's full.
Okay.
So when we consume food at a high rate of speed and we don't pay attention to those internal cues, we end up overeating. So to take that meal and to spend the time to sit there allowed us to kind of graze over our meal and pay attention to those internal cues. I know that in our society, Dave and my husband and I both have kids, and we knew what it was like to have to be at sporting events. And it's really easy to get wrapped up into, we can schedule time for everything else. The one thing we don't schedule time for is our food. So it's about bringing it back and sitting down with your family, turning off the television, turning off the phones, and really enjoying the foods that you eat. I like to tell people that we get wrapped up in the what shouldn't we eat and why shouldn't we eat it. But if you can put the phone down and really enjoy the food, think of where it came from, who prepared it for you, whether it was you or yourself or someone else in your home. Just taking the time to honor the food that you have is just really in itself all you need, and teaching children how to sit down and enjoy their plates.
One of the things too that I liked about last night and about getting to know you in general is the fact that you're not pushing a diet on somebody. You're not saying you can't have this. Now, from what I understand, there's about 3% of the population that actually has dietary needs, that they can't have things because they're either allergic or whatnot. So the rest of it is intolerance, or the media has beat it into our head that you can't have this, you can't have that. One thing that I've learned from you, one of the many things I've learned from Carrie, is about balancing out what you're having. The dinner that we had last night at the restaurant, we had a soup, we had a light soup, a light salad, then we had a soup that was a light soup, but it was very robust in flavor. and then we sat down with some root vegetables and some meat, and then we had a little bit of a lighter dessert with a little bit of chocolate involved. So talk to me about how to make those choices.
You can make any choice that you want at a dinner table. When we live in a state of dieting, we tend to yo-yo diet. We're up, it works, and then we come down, we fall off the diet. Then we start, as soon as that yo-yo starts swinging, we swing to the food police side. We come to a place of restriction. I can't have that. We start to label foods as good or bad, so we come into this place of overthinking. When we move from food police, then we swing all of a sudden to food, what I call food rebel, that then we're like, I've fallen off the diet, I'm just going to eat whatever I want. But if you start to bring yourself back to a center point saying that you don't have to live in a world of restriction or a state of indulgence 24/7, that you can enjoy those foods. The celery soup last night. Celery is high in fiber, so it keeps you full and satisfied, but celery is also a negative calorie food. So if you can look at the negative calorie food without thinking too much about it and say, the soup was 0 calorie or very low in calorie, because celery and onions are both detoxifying. Celery is a diuretic. So then to have the dessert, we didn't have to feel guilty about that. That was something that we could eat the dessert. I do recommend, if you're going to eat dessert, that you eat dessert that someone has prepared, that it's not something that came out of a box.
Okay, terrific. And speaking of the celery soup, in next week's episode, I've got right here, we're going to be doing the celery and onion soup with a couple of modifications from last night. I'm going to show you how to, we're going to add a little extra flavor to what I did last night. I'm going to show you how you can add protein to it, and just to give it a little bit of extra zing. But I love this soup. It's a fun soup to make. We've made it before. Like I said, we're going to add on to it. So another thing is, talk to me. So the checks and balances. So you're not a believer in. So if I want to have a pizza, is it okay for me to eat pizza?
It's absolutely okay to have pizza.
Okay. See,
I believe in cravings. Your
Okay.
body has a way of telling you what it wants, what it needs. I like to use the road trip analogy, that if you go on a road trip, I think we've talked about this, that I get excited because I'm like, I don't have to cook for a week. So I go out, I allow myself to eat whatever it is that I want in the restaurant. But by midweek, all of a sudden, my body says, I'll just have a soup and salad. So because I've indulged, the body has its own natural way of coming back. If I came to you and I said, after today, you can't have ice cream, you probably don't want ice cream at this very moment. But if I said, you can't have it,
I want it.
You're going to want the ice cream.
I want it.
So if you just...
Now, I want it now.
If you just stay in tune, and it's those internal cues of paying attention to what you want, usually we keep our body in what I call a state of balance. Pizza is one of my favorite foods. That's an indulgence for me. I also know that pizza also doesn't make me feel well sometimes. So that's something that I have to take into consideration, is paying attention to how food actually makes me feel. So I know that if I'm going to eat pizza, I have to know that there's going to be consequences to the choice.
That plays into that mindful eating. If you're paying attention to what's going into your body, hours later, as the digestive system is working, you're going to understand, I had this, it did not make me feel good. I had this, it made me feel great.
So I choose, instead of having 2 pieces of pizza, or sometimes the third piece,
okay,
that I just add a salad in with it, so that I'm creating that balance, that I'm not indulging or overdoing it. Okay. If you're going to eat pizza and you're going to have a craving, I like to talk about how when you're driving in your car and you get to work and you're like, man, I don't even know how I got here. Because we're not paying attention, because our mind is somewhere else. If we sit down to the table and we don't pay attention to the foods that we're eating, the very same thing happens. So if I'm craving that pizza and I sit down, but I'm on my phone or I'm watching TV, technically my brain is not registering I'm having the pizza, and this pizza is delicious.
I'm laughing because I just did this the other day. I was craving, I have these little frozen pizzas that I crave every once in a while. And I made one last weekend. I wasn't feeling well. I had a really bad cold. I just wanted that comfort food. So I went to the grocery store. I got this frozen pizza. I played tricks with it because I add things to it. I ate it. And the television was on. And I said, no, turn the television off. And normally this pizza, I can eat the whole thing. It's just a little, like a 9-inch, 10-inch thing. Normally I can eat the whole thing just sitting there, but I only ate half of it. And I was like, I did the right thing. I did the right thing. And you were in my head while I was eating. You were in my head. And it felt really good to know that. And my husband was really happy because when he came home from work that night, there was a half a pizza left waiting for him.
Yeah. It comes to that mindful eating and listening to those internal cues. And if we're consumed with external cues, we lose track of what's going on the inside. So it is bringing it back to what your body says. How does the food make me feel? When do I feel satisfied? Can I enjoy what I'm eating? When we listen to the external cues, which sometimes are being in a restaurant and the first thing that you're like is, oh, this is a huge serving. We a lot of times feel pressured to finish it because there's so much there. Or we feel pressured to finish it because we paid for it. We paid for this, so I've got to finish it. And that's acceptable, but you can still take half of it with you. You can come up with alternatives of different choices to make in the restaurant.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Now we have friends that they live in Costa Rica, but one of the things, so hi, my Costa Rican friends, you know who you are, Bunky and Denise. When they go out, they will, if they are paying attention, they will say box half of it before you even bring it to me.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
that's a great idea. Or, sometimes my husband and I, we'll piecemeal and we'll share everything, and we'll do small appetizers instead of a whole meal.
That's something that my husband and I do as well. I literally like to have my cake and eat it too. I want the entire dinner. I want an appetizer. I want soup. I want salad. I want dinner. And I want dessert. And I want my glass of wine. So knowing that I would feel pressured if I had all of that in front of me, we just choose to split the entree. And I can then take what I want off of his plate and vice versa.
Okay, so that's terrific. Now, do you find I know that you're a fairly new yoga instructor. Is that correct? In the last couple of years?
Yeah, about the last 2 years.
In the last 2 years. Have you found that your approach to eating has changed since you started doing the yoga and working out regularly?
Definitely. I definitely have to be more mindful of when I eat, and more aware of how the food is going to make me feel, because definitely you don't want to teach feeling bloated, because forward folds would become a little miserable. So definitely with that, but yoga does take a mindful approach of taking that step back to always appreciate what's before you, whatever it is.
Right.
So whether it's your food, whether it's your yoga practice, whether it's a daily walk. So my approach to food is much like yoga, that it's about finding the balance.
Okay.
Knowing when you need to take a yin class versus a hot power yoga class. Right. Knowing when the body says enough's enough. Yoga is about customizing your practice and making it what you need. I like to tell people, and it's the same thing with eating, take what you need and leave what you don't.
Okay, and I brought up yoga on purpose because I've been thinking about the yoga with the eating kind of thing. I'm not telling everybody you have to go out and do yoga. Yoga is not for everyone. I do yoga because I need a release from being at the gym and throwing kettlebells around. But if you take sort of that approach that, okay, let's balance things out, which it should be life in general, is balancing the things out. And if you start that with your eating habits, I feel like the rest of it is just going to go right along with that. Is that correct?
Yes. And on the mat, we do a lot of awareness. What are you feeling? What's happening? And when you start to bring that to the table, what's going on? What's happening? Am I paying attention to my food? Am I distracted am I distracted by the TV and ignoring my husband? Mm-hmm. So it's really just bringing it back to a place of being grateful for what's before you, whatever it is.
Okay, and I want to talk a little bit about food, a little bit more about how not just the types of food that we eat, but how often we eat. I'm a big believer in, because of the business that I'm in, I'm grazing throughout the day. I'm lightly snacking. I try to not eat after 7 o'clock at night, just for my own body, because sometimes it will just go crazy and I will have awful nightmares. But are you of the school that 3 square meals a day and a morning snack, a mid-morning snack, and a mid-afternoon snack, or eat when you're hungry and don't overdo it?
That depends on each individual.
Okay.
So my feeling is that nothing is one size fits all. What works for me is not going to work for you. So it's about finding that balance once again and seeing what works. So if you feel yourself having energy spikes and lows, highs and lows throughout the course of the day, then you may be that person that needs to graze so that you're maintaining an energy and a fuel in the body that's more consistent. For me, I prefer to have a larger lunch and a smaller dinner, very light breakfast. That works for me. I don't have to graze. My husband is a grazer. He needs to eat every 2 hours.
And I like the big breakfast in the morning. One thing that we're going to be doing on the show, probably I think in about 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to have a day of my food. I'm going to show you what I start with in the morning, what I'll snack with during the day, what I'll have for lunch, afternoon snack, and a dinner on a day that I'm not running around crazy through town. And that doesn't happen very often for any of us, and I realize that. But what I'm going to show you is how you can take this food with you along where you go. And if you can take 10 minutes to sit down and have a snack, how that will re-energize you for the rest of your day.
And as you plan your day, it's looking at, where am I going to be? Where am I going to be when this happens? I will be the first one to say, do not fuel your body the same place that you will fuel your car. Do not eat at the gas station.
I like that.
Don't eat at a gas station. But if you know that you're going to be out and about during the day, then you make that choice before you leave the house and say, you know what? I know that I'm going to be on the road, and these are going to be my choices. You can still make healthy choices when you're out and about and traveling. But if you feel like you're going to be in one of those areas that there's not a whole lot there, grab something and take with you.
Okay, so again, mindful eating, thinking about it before you do it, while you're doing it, and after you're doing it. Yeah. Carrie, I want to thank you for joining me today. This has been so much fun. Carrie and I are going to be hosting another dinner together in June. You'll see that out on both of our Facebook pages and websites. Again, I'm Brooke Haggerty, the Food Chick. This is Carrie Hoff, our journey to wellness. Thanks for joining me. And
appreciate it.
Everyone have a great day. Remember, mindful eating helps make everything better.